Hi, I'm John Maxwell. When the top companies in the world are looking for trainers, speakers, and coaches, there's one name that stands above the rest, and that's Maxwell Leadership. Our certified team members have gotten proven results for companies all over the globe, and our reputation, I'm proud to say, is second to none. Some of our members have risen to the top of their profession, including the one you're going to meet today. I proudly introduce you to my friend Bob Fabian Zinka.
Welcome to the Leadership and Success Podcast with your host, Coach BZ, where we help you lead with purpose and succeed with impact. If you're ready to grow into the kind of leader others want to follow, this podcast is for you. If you're determined to elevate your success and leave a lasting legacy, this podcast is for you. As my mentor, Dr. John C. Maxwell reminds us, everything rises and falls on leadership. Our goal is simple: to inspire you, challenge you, and equip you with insights that can transform the trajectory of your leadership journey. Welcome aboard to another episode of the Leadership and Success Podcast with Coach B.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Dean Huard.
And I'm CW5 David Hunt. We're from 13th Sustainment Command stationed here in Camp Arif Jan, Kuwait.
Congratulations to the Ducks for winning the Rose Bowl, and we can't wait to see another win in the national championship.
Go Ducks!
All right, thanks so much for joining us for another episode of the Leadership and Success Podcast. I have a very special guest waiting in the green room right now. But as is our tradition, let's start with our moment of gratitude. This is a moment we take usually less than a minute. We just want to make sure we are grateful for something every single time we meet. That's really good for your mental health, especially for the service members in the U.S. Armed Forces. As about 21 service members commit suicide every single day. So if you would maybe close your eyes and put yourself in your happy place, take a deep breath to slow down your nervous system, and think about one thing you are grateful for today. Yesterday was Martin Luther King Days, and I am just so grateful that I believe I live in the greatest country in the world, the best country that's ever been. I am a U.S. citizen by choice. I chose to be an American citizen, right? African by birth, French by culture, but I wanted to be here because America really is the only country with a dream. And of course, MLK's best speech, one of the best speeches ever, I have a dream. And really, America is the only country I know in the world with a dream, right? There is no African dream, no Congolese dream, no French dream, no European dream, but there is the American dream. And that's part of the reason why I joined the US Navy, and part of the reason why I am willing to give my life for this idea. America is worth fighting for. So anyway, I am grateful to be an American, and let us know what you are grateful for today. Also, let us know where you are joining us from, what city, what state, if outside of the US, which country. And also, if you have a question for my guest, please type it in the comments. So thank you so much for joining us. All right, let me see if I can properly introduce our guest. I'm going to try. So today, we are going to be speaking to Lieutenant Colonel Dean Huard, U.S. Army retired. Now, Lieutenant Colonel Huard is known for his principled leadership, people-first mindset, and unwavering belief that civility is a leadership strength, not a weakness. And I think if we need civility, we need it more today than ever before in our society. So his journey spans combat deployment, multi-million-dollar sustainment operation, municipal governance, and thought leadership on ethical service in a polarized world. If you remember, I believe the first city manager we interviewed on this podcast was my former professor, Dr. Casey and Lucius from the Naval War College in Monterey, California. But I am really glad and honored to have Lieutenant Colonel Huard here with us. So if you would please help me welcome to the Leadership and Success Podcast, Lieutenant Colonel Dean Huard. All right, Colonel Huard, how are you doing today, sir? Can you?
Easy, I'm sorry, I can't hear you again. No.
Okay, I can hear you and I can see you as well. Can you double check the speaker? Check speaker. Because I can see you and hear you. I really love doing this. Can you hear me now? Try setting speakers. While Colonel Huard is doing that, I want to remind you guys that tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, right? I will have a great pleasure of interviewing a chaplain tomorrow, Colonel Shabazz. Let me see if I have the okay. So that is going to be tomorrow, and then a day after tomorrow, I will be speaking to Chief Duane Hart, U.S. Navy retired. He's a cybersecurity leader. He's written 3 books already, a tech visionary and keynote speaker. I'm going to be talking from the deck plate to the digital battle space. So that's the day after tomorrow, and tomorrow we're going to be talking with Chaplain Colonel Shabazz. All right, can you hear me now, Dean? No. Let me try one more thing. Okay, he's going to be right back. We did test this before we started. Let's see. Huh. It's really strange. I can hear you just fine.
Hey, BZ, I get the same problem. The settings are the same.
And what about the setting for speaker? I think it's under, let me see. Under audio, the audio input and then the audio output.
Yeah, audio's MacBook Air microphone, audio outputs, MacBook Air speakers.
So I should be coming through your speaker, and your volume on the speaker is turned up on the Mac.
All the way up, yeah, all the way up.
Huh? I could hear you just a minute ago.
I know, that's what's weird.
Okay, what is interesting is I can hear you just fine. So I'm sure the audience can hear you too, and I know they can hear me as well.
Do you want to retake and then just do it over the phone?
So actually, yeah, I guess we could do it this way, but okay, let's try one more thing. I'm gonna kick you out and then try to come back.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so let's see. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear. Yeah.
Okay. I really have no idea why it did that, but okay. All right, that's fine. For the live, I can't do anything about it, but for what's going to go on all of the podcast platform, I'm going to remove 10 minutes we spent trying to get this working. All right. So as I was saying, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the Leadership and Success Podcast, the one and only Lieutenant Colonel Dean Huard. All right. So here we are. Welcome to the Leadership and Success Podcast. How are you doing today, Colonel?
I'm doing great. Texas is pretending like it's winter right now. So yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks.
Yeah, I guess San Francisco is doing the same thing. I love the winters here. I understand there was snow in Maine, at least last week. But wonderful. What are you grateful for today, if anything?
You know, the biggest thing I'm grateful for is my tribe. Over the last year, you know, I've had some setbacks, but I am just uberly impressed with my tribe. I got people that check in with me, all the time. How's it going? How was
Mm-hmm.
that interview? I've got one friend of mine that checks in weekly, at
Wow.
the same time, so we can just kind of mentor each other a little bit.
Yes.
So I just think it's precious. I mean, it's priceless to have people that check in with you. And so that is what I'm grateful
Mm.
to have a really good tribe of people. And they're not just all, veterans. They're,
Yes.
friends, family, people that just check in to see how we're doing.
That is so wonderful. I am going through the book of Proverbs right now. It's not a religious study or anything, but we just focus kind of like on wisdom, right, from the book of Proverbs and see how it's still applicable today. And one verse we read the other day was a friend who stick closer than a brother. And I've really felt that love, that friendship, really that brotherhood in the Navy more than any other organization in my life. No, people, I first met them, they were complete stranger. I didn't know them from Adam, but then they became a friend, and now they are closer than my own biological brothers and sister, and they are willing to take a bullet for me. I cannot say that at IBM or Microsoft or Google. So it's really amazing the bond that you form, and what people are willing to do for one another. Shared risk, shared value, and there is nothing like it. But anyway, thank you so much for
Oh, thank you. That's
sharing
that's
that.
a great conversation because I think as we get older, it's important to have those connections.
Yes.
And, for you and your listeners, there's a great author out there, David Brooks,
Mm-hmm.
and Arthur Brooks. But Arthur Brooks wrote a book called Strength to Strength, and it's about
Hmm.
that midpoint in life. And one of the things he talks about is the importance of friendship. You don't have to have a lot of friends, and I've actually referred to them as casket friends. You know,
Mm-hmm.
those people that are going to be next to you when you're gone. So it's important to have really good friendships
Yes.
that meant to you throughout your life.
That means so much, and yeah, it's true. It's becoming more and more important today. Now I'm getting older than when I was younger. And friends I met 21 years ago when I went to boot camp, LTC, Great Mistake. I mean, Great Lakes in Chicago. They are still my friends today. It's just incredible the bond that you form. You really become more than just teammates. It's really a family. Wow. And if you have at least a handful of those in your life, I think you are really blessed. You are
Yeah.
super lucky. So let me ask you this. Is there something about you that most people may not know about when they first meet you?
Uh, I mean, honestly, I've led a life of service, so I think anybody that knows me knows that I'm about service and helping others, and sharing with others. That's been my monocle, ensuring that I've led a life of service. And it started,
Yes.
when I was younger. But I guess as it relates to service, maybe something some folks don't know is there's always sacrifice with service, but
Hmm.
I did things a little different in life where I spent 13 years in the Guard and Reserve, and then 9/11 happened, and like
Yes.
a lot of other veterans, I really wanted to go active duty. I got commissioned in the Guard at the University of Oregon through ROTC, but
Hmm.
then I did 13 years weekend warrior. Like we were talking before when we went on the air.
Yes.
Always kind of wishing that I had done active duty. So 9/11 happened. I had the opportunity to do that, and I think the one thing that people don't realize, maybe about me, is just it was true that I had sacrifice, but the family sacrifice.
Mm.
Is my wife. I'm actually in her office right now while
Yes.
while she's out of town. But my wife and family went through a lot of sacrifice so that I
Hmm.
could do what I wanted to do,
Yes.
and serve on active duty. So I think that's the
Mm.
story behind service, is that
Yes.
sacrifice that families make.
That is so powerful. When I had the opportunity to be a commanding officer, nothing I loved more than writing a thank you letter to the spouses of my people because they serve too and they sacrifice a lot. As a matter of fact, no, I may be commander in the Navy, but in my household, the commander is my wife, not me.
Oh,
So
sure.
I am I am a seaman. So whatever she says, she's gonna get it.
I can relate. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So maybe you can tell us briefly kind of your story. Two things. One, how you got to become a senior officer in the most powerful army in the world, but also a city manager, which is pretty fascinating.
Yeah,
How
it
did that
is.
happen?
I think there's some parallels there. So, like I alluded to, I did, 13 years Guard and Reserve, came on active duty, and then I retired in 23 with 34 years total.
Wow.
And before that, all my education was government, political science. My first job out of college was managing two campaigns for the state legislature in Oregon. So I kind of
Mm,
had that political bug, if you will. My favorite movie was Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
yes.
I'm dating myself because it's a black and white movie from many,
Hmm.
many years ago with Jimmy Stewart, but it's
Yes.
that to me kind of laid the foundation for me and whether or not I was
Mm,
going to do something in government and politics. And after that experience of I'll call it red and blue politics, I decided that really wasn't the route that I wanted to go on.
yes.
So fast forward about 20 years after 34-year career total as a Army logistician, I decided that I still wanted to serve,
Hmm.
but at the time I really wasn't interested in maybe doing more government work, defense contractor work, that kind of thing. And I just started researching, other ways to serve. And I had a lot of friends that were veterans that transitioned into local government.
Yes.
And so I was very fascinated with, not doing something, what's that phrase? Act globally, but think locally.
Hmm.
So I got involved with our local city, got on the planning and zoning committee. My wife was on the economic development committee. And so I did then, once I retired, I did a fellowship with the city of Georgetown, which
Wow.
was very instrumental in my decision making because that was it's kind of like a skills bridge. The
Hmm.
Army and the military has what's called skills bridge programs where you do an internship. But with this one, there's really no job slated for you at the end of it, but you do get
Yes.
to learn about what it's like to be in local government.
Wow.
So I made the transition. I interviewed with a lot of different cities, West Coast, Texas, and then got hired
Mm,
on as a city manager in a very small city outside of Austin called the Village of the Hills. Uh,
wow.
It was a very unique city, 2,600 people, 1,105 homes, had a country club and a park. And
Nice.
it was unique in that it didn't have the same revenue sources because there wasn't a
Mhm.
lot of sales tax revenue. So that's kind of where my journey began is I wanted to continue to serve. And then, so I transitioned into local government with uh,
Wow.
that city. So I'm not the first veteran to go into local government. There were many
Yes.
more that kind of paved the path. A laundry list of folks that are still
Hmm.
that are still in my tribe that are current city managers. So
Wow.
it's a very applicable transferable skill set from
Yes.
active duty, local government or to local government because
Mm,
at the end of the day, it's leading people. It's
yes.
understanding because in the military you go from being in charge of large budgets, lots of people, lots of equipment.
Hmm.
So it's a very transferable skill.
Wow.
Um, and then so I would also encourage anybody that's interested. It's not just for the senior leader that wants to go manage a city. It's
Mm,
also for the HR person that did
yeah.
HR on active duty to go be an HR person in local government. You
Hmm.
know, the signal IT person that wants to go do IT
Yes.
in local government. Um, lots of transferable skills.
Yes, and I guess especially for the enlisted and junior officers out there, sometimes they don't really know how to translate what do in the Navy or the military to the civilian world. And it's very important to spend some time to kind of think about all of the transferable skills we have, especially leadership, which is something people I can tell you in the industry, they really don't prioritize very much. And it's something that I think anybody in the military can always bring to
Well, and it's
their
also
organization.
something that even as a, even as a retired lieutenant colonel, sometimes, and and I think I went through the process the way you're supposed to. I went through
Yes.
that program, transition assistance, and then, then I did this fellowship. But the biggest piece of advice I would give, about 2 years out, is
Mhm.
that you have to know yourself. Like you
Yes.
really, and there's obviously lots of books, and I really think that the Army and the military does a really good job of training us to be better leaders to other people.
Yes.
But I think we missed the mark a little bit on learning how to build yourself first. Learning how to figure out who you are. And maybe they did that over the last 34 years, and I just missed that class. But
Yes.
again, as a transitioning person, I just think it's vital that you figure out not just your strengths and weaknesses, but your value system, who you are as a person, because and how you self-govern, the importance of being emotionally intelligent.
Yes.
So just ground yourself first, figure out what your foundation is so that you can go off to lead other people effectively.
Excellent advice. Thank you so much for sharing that, Colonel. So let me ask you this. You often reference Capitol Dome moments.
Yeah.
What was the very first moment in your life when leadership kind of shifted from an idea to a responsibility?
For me, just a quick definition on Capitol Dome moments. I coined the phrase when I was talking to a graduate class on public administration, and I highlighted out my personal road to service, and I thought through, all the events that all the events that had happened to me, such as joining the Army, going to basic training, becoming an officer. But then before that, I was student body president of the college I went to, a small town off the coast in Coos Bay. And so it was little moments like that. And, going back to the Mr. Smith Goes to Washington reference is, so Mr. Smith, Jimmy Stewart, there you go. Mr. Smith, Jimmy Stewart was a very naive do-gooder, I think from the Midwest, and he, had this idea to have a boys' camp, and but what ended up happening was he ended up becoming a U.S. senator. So his first trip to Washington D.C., even though like he was well versed in the U.S. Constitution, he was well versed in everything about democracy, he shows up to the Capitol for the first time, gets out of the car and looks up at the Capitol Dome and just very naively says, "Look, the Capitol Dome." And so I know that's a very naive moment for me as well, but I coined that phrase that those were to me, a lot of those service moments, they were Capitol Dome moments to me.
Yes.
So to answer your question about making that transition, for me, it was really standing in front of that formation for the first time, in front of, and I was in a guard unit in Coos Bay after I got my commission, standing in front of that unit for the first time, realizing that, this wasn't theory anymore. This was as a platoon leader of an engineer unit, which, by the way, I personally was not an engineer. Like if you ask my wife, I can barely screw in a light bulb. So it was unique because, a lot of imposter syndrome, because I was in charge of a unit that wasn't my forte. But what the Army does is it teaches you to lead people not based off of your technical capability.
Mm-hmm.
Although looking back on it, yes, I wish I would have had more, of an engineer of a background. But the beauty of the Army and the military in general is that they teach you that you're not the subject matter expert. You're the
Yes.
one responsible for the mission,
Mm-hmm.
but you're taking a group of people with different capabilities, different backgrounds,
Yeah.
uh, and you're supposed to you're supposed to accomplish the mission. So they don't. But once you put
Yes.
that rank on and you're in front of that formation, they're not asking really what school you went to, what your capability is.
Mm-hmm.
That they know that you did everything you're supposed to do to lead those troops. Now,
Yes.
guess what? You're in charge. So that really was that
Mm.
moment for me, coming from theory in college, uh,
Yes.
going through ROTC to and it didn't matter if it was guard, reserve, active duty soldiers.
Yes.
The guard was a little unique because you had people that came from all walks of life, all different backgrounds,
Mm.
and so that part was very unique. But it was again figuring out how I was going to manage and lead
Wow.
30 people as a 23-year-old just out of very very unique.
Yes, indeed. Wow. What you said, I thought about a lot of things. I remember when I first joined the Navy and I became commissioned as an information professional officer, we were really, the expectation was to be very technical at first, especially as a junior officer. We had to get all types of qualification. But the more senior I became, especially when I became like an O4 lieutenant commander or major equivalent in the Army, that's when I started to be more of a leader of people than an expert in my field. And then, of course, the information warfare community, which then included Intel, MITOC, and a bunch of other designators that had nothing to do with my specialty, and being able to work with them in order to accomplish the mission of the command. That is so powerful. Now, you mentioned Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
So growing up near DC, how did early exposure to democratic institution, like the Dome and all of that, kind of shape your understanding of service and duty?
Well, I think that's where it all started. My childhood memory isn't really good, but I can remember back to when we were living in Northern Virginia. I grew up a Coast Guard brat, and quite frankly, back then I
Uh,
served 26 years in the Coast Guard, and
wow.
back then. The Coast Guard is just a very unique branch. I'm
Mm,
not sure what the numbers are now, but back then it was probably like 35,000 people, and
wow.
he didn't spend a lot of boat time, ship time. He was a supply officer, but so that was the background for me, and that's what brought us to Northern Virginia. And I'm a big
Mm,
believer, that everything happens for a reason. So yeah, on Sundays we would go to the Capitol. We would, go to Smithsonian's, and
wow.
I don't know what the moment was, but I know it was during that time frame when we were there where, we would walk the halls of the Capitol, and
Mm-hmm.
I remember doing a book report, on on those days, when we were in the Capitol, and remember seeing the doors of Robert Dole,
Wow.
from many years ago, and so yeah, I think that's just kind of when I got the bug, was learning about the federal system and the founders, and the colonies, and how the country was formed.
Yes.
But then since then, I think as citizens, we probably don't have a good feel for
Mm,
how our government really works, and especially at a federal level. But then, as a citizen that pays taxes for, you know,
mm-hmm.
for our cities, the water, property taxes. I think it takes doesn't take a PhD, but it takes uh, you really have to be a concerned citizen to figure out exactly how
Yes.
your individual government runs. Because I remember, even as a city manager, I would go back to my old unit, and they would say to me, "Hey, what's it like being the mayor?" No, I'm not the mayor. And, the mayor is the elected person. I'm
Yes.
the one that makes sure that, the trash is picked up on time,
Hmm.
that there's events for the cities. And so not to take anything away from the manager's role, but sometimes, people don't understand exactly how their own government uh,
Yes.
is working. So,
Mm.
but for me, yeah, it started back in DC, and that's when I decided to major in political science. I minored in public administration, and then even before I left active duty, I decided to get another credential from the Bush School at
Wow.
Texas A&M on public management. So it's definitely been an evolution, but that's where it started in DC.
That is really fascinating. And also, when I look at your career, so you were on active duty, the reserve, but also the National Guard, pretty much all three branches of
Mhm.
the U.S. Army. So many people they tend to think that military leadership is command and control. In my experience, that's the way it was 21 years ago, but it's definitely changed a lot, especially with all of these Gen Zs coming into the military. They need to be led a little bit differently. But anyway, what did combat and sustainment operation actually teach you about trust, collaboration, and humility?
Well, it's funny as a logistician, I personally take a lot of pride in, um, being behind the scenes,
Mhm.
and and I've done a lot of research over this last year, and it's interesting because there's not a lot of books written on logistics, even though there's a lot of quotes out there
Mhm.
on the importance of logistics, because wars are fought and won over
Yes.
supplies, ensuring that the warfighter has exactly what they need. So,
Mhm.
uh, but you mentioned humility. I think to be a really good logistician, you have to be humble, uh,
Mm.
because what you're doing, behind the scenes is a very humbling, is a very humbling act. And maybe, I don't know, looking back as I've been reflecting, maybe watching my dad, he was a storekeeper, supply officer,
Mhm.
and I watched him get a lot of job satisfaction out of very
Wow.
simple things, like ensuring that 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 the store that he ran, the exchange,
Mhm.
that everybody had what they needed. And
Yes.
really, it's funny. I watched him, how people would come into that store, and it became like a sense of community.
Mm.
People look forward to coming to see him, coming to see the employees, because he treated them well. So
Yes.
and definitely humility. If I look back on my dad, I mean that's definitely one of his characteristics. Uh,
Mm.
so I think humility is really important, when it comes to sustaining operations. And as a logistician, I can't remember all the tenets, but one of them is being anticipatory.
Yes.
So, as logisticians, we are responsible of ensuring that we give the warfighter everything that they need, and maybe we're thinking, we've thought
Ahead.
a little bit more for them,
Mhm.
so that they can go achieve what they need to for the warfighting effort.
Wow, that is so powerful. Really, when it comes to leadership, right? Every job counts. No job is too
Yeah,
small, especially when whatever you are doing is really contributing to the mission of the organization. Because being a storekeeper, it's happened to me many times. I have to report for duty. Something is wrong with my uniform. I need to have my name tag. I need to have my medal or whatever it might be. I need to be compliant to the uniform regulation before I show up at 0600 tomorrow. And if your shop doesn't have it, then I am in real trouble, and of course, it's going to affect my mission too. Remind me, I think it was JFK, right, when he was talking about going to the moon. He went to NASA. He saw
Mhm.
that gentleman who was just, I guess, he was a janitor, I believe, and he got to ask him, "Hey, what is your mission? What do you do here at NASA?" And this janitor says, "No, my job is to take the man to the moon." That is
Exactly.
so powerful. Just that alignment.
Right.
Wow.
Well, I think that's true. I mean, if you look at what happened last night with Indiana,
Mhm.
based on, I'm not an Indiana guy, but I absolutely love the story because
Yeah.
I bet you Coach Signetti has that same attitude that
Hmm.
no matter if it's the guy handing out towels,
Yes.
that everybody has a role. It's that entire team that
Mm.
it's those behind the scenes teammates that make that operation successful. And I've always felt that way. Again, as a logistician, because um, I think the phrase is it takes 7 or 8 logisticians to support the one warfighter. Uh,
Mm.
and that's why, so you take a lot of pride in that,
Yes.
that warfighter needs food, fuel, ammunition, maintenance parts, all that. It's
Yes.
all integral for the success of the operation.
Hmm. That is really something. And one thing in my experience that kind of changed through time. Initially, as IP officer, we really looked at as support to the warfighter. We take off telecommunication computers or whatever, but we are supporting the actual warfighter. But then that kind of changed where we became the warfighter too, especially as information warfare became more and more central in the way we fight wars these days. So we do get the start too in the uniform, just like the SWARs or everybody else. But it is quite amazing though when whatever you are doing, when you can connect that to the big mission of the organization and kind of see what your part is, and really nobody can do that job but you, and if you don't do it, then it is going to affect the entire
Well,
organization.
since this is a leadership
uh,
podcast, I gotta, um, actually, make this point as well. Is that is the job of the
yes.
leader. That's to me, that's the
Mm,
essential, or at least not quintessential, but that's one of the jobs of leader is to
yes.
bring all those different capabilities. Because
Hmm.
my last job on active duty, I was the chief of staff of a sustainment unit, but as the XO, I had HR, intel, supply, uh, capital
Yeah.
improvement, and so the job is to bring everybody together so that they understand what the because when you have a staff that are just focused on the internal mission, they may not
Mm,
understand or appreciate what's going on externally.
yes.
So that's the job of the leader. And what I try to do as a chief of staff is to help the internal staff understand
Mm.
exactly what the big picture is.
That is quite powerful. Now, during our Operation Inherent Resolve, you coordinated with over 30 organizations. Wow, that's a lot. What leadership behaviors made collaboration possible at that scale?
I think the 2 words, trust and transparency,
Mm,
because and really understanding everybody's capability. So yeah, that was a very interesting mission because for us personally, because when we literally got on the plane, we thought that our mission was going to be retrograding equipment out of Afghanistan, which we did, but in addition to the real mission, which was to to set up BPC sites, or like
mhm.
I call them mini cities, because we were tasked with providing the life support for about I want to say it was like 30,000
Wow.
Iraqi soldiers, and our job wasn't to train them as a sustainment unit, but our
Mhm.
job was to, again, enable the warfighter to do their mission.
Yes.
So we set up these BPC sites throughout all of Iraq to make sure that they had everything that they needed
Wow.
to train the Iraqis. So that required a lot of collaboration, coalition building with, as you mentioned, all those countries, because all those
Mm,
countries were going to be supporting and training the Iraqis. The Americans in our sustainment unit had the mission to stand up all those different mini cities.
hmm.
But yeah, to answer your question, trust, transparency, uh,
Yes.
collaboration, and realizing that that everybody's there for the right reason. Everybody has good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a common purpose. That's exactly why they're there, is to, that everybody wants to do the right thing.
Wow.
And I think if you have that mentality, then you're going to be very successful.
So during your active duty time, what do you think is one of the most difficult leadership decision you made in uniform, and what did it cost you personally?
You know, for me personally, it really came towards the end of my career, because I was trying to rack my brain on, like tactical decisions that were life or death. But
Mm-hmm.
what the biggest decisions that I made, I think, were working as a chief of staff, where where I had real world, conflict management
Mm.
situations. Now, I had them on active duty, but what sticks in my mind are the ones where I had about probably 90% civilian staff and the rest military. And the decisions that I made, obviously affected everybody, but I had to deal with real world conflict management
Yes.
resolutions, situations where, maybe my personnel section wasn't getting along with my budget section.
Mm-hmm.
And as a leader, you do a lot of that. I mean, you
Yes.
do a lot of, and that's not something that, it's really not something that you're taught in class at CGSE or any type of
Mm-hmm.
school. You just, from lieutenant to, lieutenant colonel to general, I think you probably spend a big part of your career, dealing with people, obviously, and then dealing with those personalities and learning how to deflect and reduce conflict management.
Mm-hmm.
So I won't, give too many details,
Yes.
but looking back on it, you just spend an inordinate amount, because it's a people business. You're
Yes.
dealing with people and their backgrounds and preconceived notions and
Large egos too sometimes.
large egos. Yeah, I mean, definitely large egos. And but the bottom line is, when it comes to your organization, is making people re-understand
Yes.
expectation management, so
Mm.
that they understand why they're there and understand what their common purpose is, which
Wow.
is, whatever your mission is. As a leader, you're helping them understand, hey, look, you may have issues and problems with your neighbor, but that's
Mm-hmm.
not why we're here. We're here to do a mission that's
Yes.
bigger than you and I put together.
So true. Of course, I love a leadership mantra I learned throughout my Navy career: mission first, because we do have to accomplish that mission. But people always. Now, you mentioned life and death. That's another big difference I see between the military and the industry. Right in Silicon Valley, where I am, doesn't matter if you work for Microsoft, Google, or OpenAI or whatever. There's never going to really be a life and death situation. Nobody is going to die if you
Yeah.
make a dumb decision. Or worse, that might happen. You might lose some money, or a business deal might go sour or something. But uh, how did you maintain composure and moral clarity when the stakes were life, death, and critical mission failure? How did you do that?
Well, I think that goes to my other, this topic that I have, that I've written about, over this last year, is civility. I think it's so important
Mm,
in today's society that because, politics of what they are, at the federal level on down to the local level,
yes.
the really good leaders that I've been mentored by, they are civil leaders. And if you have that baseline, that of decorum and being civil, treating everybody with dignity and respect,
Hmm.
you, you're going to be able to deal with those life or death situations. Now, I think it helps that you have a few of those to get tested, but but you really have to have that in you to
Yes.
to really be effective. And you're right. Like in the military, we're going to have more opportunities.
Mhm.
Uh, as a logistician, in the types of deployments I had, I didn't have life or death personally, but I provided resources
Yes.
that if they didn't get to the right person at the right time, then there could be some consequences that were possibly life or death.
Yes.
But again, I go back to the importance of the importance of how you're self-governed, and hopefully part of that is being civil, having
Mhm.
decorum, having dignity, respect for other people. That's what I think makes a really effective leader.
Wow, really insightful. Let me talk a little bit about your transition to from battlefield to city hall. To me, the city is really a microcosm of our entire society, including our federal government. So your transition into city management kind of exposed you to a very different kind of battlefield. No, there is definitely politics, a lot of polarization. I know that tends to happen probably more now than ever before in our country. It seems like. But what kind of surprised you most during your transition?
Well, I think because I have that background of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, I was very, I guess, very naive. But then I look back on it. Like I mentioned earlier, my first job out of college was managing two campaigns for the state
Mhm.
legislature, and truth be told, I got fired. I got fired by the consultants at 22 years old because they didn't like the way that the campaign was being run. So,
Mm.
I saw firsthand, just how difficult that world can be.
Yes.
But so I had that same type of I'll call it Mr. Smith Goes to Washington attitude when I went into local government, um, because honestly, the people that I worked with, at the city of Georgetown and at the city of Nolanville, Texas, outside Fort
Yeah.
Hood, um, everybody wants to do the right thing. I mean,
Sure.
everybody really wants. They're there for because they all have uh, public servant hearts. Like
Hmm.
they want to do the right thing for the people, but sometimes when elected leaders get into position, some of them are not really in it for the right reason.
Yeah.
There can be a lot of micromanagement. You can get some of the red and blue politics,
Yeah.
and and it's a real shame because we're not. I think we're at our best as Americans, as citizens, is when we all work together, when we all find a way to compromise.
Mm.
And I think some cities are better at it than others.
Yes.
But if you, um, but as a city manager, looking back on it, I probably should have do this. I should have done this, but a lot of cities will have, like governance training. When the city councilor comes in, hey, look, this is how government runs. Because
Yes.
most city councilors when they run, or at least a lot of them will have like some agendas. They want to make sure the parks are better. They
Hmm.
they they don't want to see businesses flourishing. So maybe they come into it with the wrong mindset. It's
Mm.
like they want to change, but they may not want to cooperate to see that change.
Yes.
But
Mm.
again, I'll end that question on a positive note because there
Yes.
are so many good elected leaders out there. There are so many good servant leaders out there in local government that just want to see things done properly, in their city. Because I quite frankly, if people want to serve and they want to give back, you can do it at the federal level, you can do it at the state level,
Yeah.
but if you really want to see government in action, then go to your local city hall, find out what committees are open,
Hmm.
serve on a committee. I serve on our local economic development committee. Like I mentioned prior, when I was at Fort Hood, thinking about I want to go in local government, I serve on the planning and zoning committee. there are a million ways to serve that aren't at the highest level.
Yes.
So yeah.
Well, that is really powerful to say, because one reason why, when I think about city government again, I believe it's a microcosm of our entire society, especially because in the past you have openly spoken about kind of dysfunction and micromanagement, but just know this toxic environment we kind of live in, even as a country right now, where there is polarization and all of this politicization of things and division. Just, I guess, generally speaking, my question for you is: how should leaders navigate toxic environment in general without losing themselves? What would you recommend?
I think it all goes back to building yourself first.
Yes.
Being self-aware.
Hmm.
You know, understanding who you are as a person, making sure that because I really believe this. Like, if you don't build yourself first, if you don't learn how to self-govern yourself, then you shouldn't be governing others. Like you should
Mm.
just kind of support from afar because
Yes.
and so you have to have the right value system. So I think that's the most
Mm.
important part, is to make sure that you are that you know who you are.
Yes.
You're self-governed well, so that way you can go and effectively govern others.
That's powerful. I think Socrates right says, "Know thyself first," which is so powerful. Yeah, I like something my primary uncle, Papa John, taught me. Right, is to have great values, value people, and then want to add value to people, all people, regardless of who they are, where they come from, and their background. I think you can really make a big difference. So let me ask you this one more question before we go to the last segment. Civility. One of the quotes that you've said over and over again, and I really love it, is civility is not weakness, but strength. Now, especially in the time we are living now, I think we need civility more than ever before. Why is civility now a leadership requirement rather than a nice to have?
So I would argue that throughout our history, the greatest leaders that we've had, that has been one of their hallmarks.
Hmm.
So if you look at and I'm not doing the red or blue thing, but go back to our first president, go back to
Yeah, George Washington. Yeah.
George Washington. He actually wrote a civility book on, and I think he
Mm.
based off the Jesuits.
Yes.
And it's just a very practical way to govern yourself.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, I think today's leader needs a lot more civility.
Yes.
And I look at my personal 34-year career, Guard, Reserve, active duty. The leaders that I responded to most, and that I consider mentors now,
Hmm.
the General Foggs, the General Williams, the General Simmerleys, they were, to me, a pillar of civility, because
Mm.
with those three individuals, I never saw them, and not that you shouldn't, but I
Yes.
never saw them raise their voice in anger. And
Wow.
going back and reflecting a little bit, I saw that with my father too. I mean, he just was the most steady, even keel, compassionate,
Mm.
likable guy. And if I could label him now, he was probably, one of my first like civil leaders. So,
Yes.
yeah, I really think that today's environment really needs more civility, and
Mm.
I think it would help us out at a federal level. That
Yes.
way, you would have leaders that were more interested in getting things done,
Hmm.
opposed to opposed to being so
Yes.
concerned about your agenda, what your policy is. There
Mm.
just needs to be more, a lot more compromise, because, like,
Yes.
the days of Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill, like,
Hmm.
both of them would be adversaries during the day, and then
Yes.
at night they would sit down and have a drink and
Mm.
tell and tell Irish stories together, because they were both had some Irish background.
Yes.
So There,
Wow.
there really needs to be more of that. And you mentioned, civility not being a weakness, because I think that's the problem is when people see it as, oh, you're compromising.
Mm,
Uh, that means you're not true to your agenda. No,
yes.
you're actually finding a way to move the ball forward and to be effective as a leader.
That is so powerful. That's why I love no e Pretos Unum, right? Out of many, one. No, we have so much more in common as American than we have that divide and separate us. That's why, one of the recent lessons you mentioned one Reagan, it was a good one, but also John McCain, who happened to have had a military experience too, when he says, country before party. That was
Yeah.
pretty powerful. Before I am a Republican, Democrat, or whatever your party affiliation is, first and foremost, I am a U.S. citizen, and that really makes a big difference when you look at it through those
Well, and
lenses.
that's what's great about the military too, is that
Yes.
there is no we're just not as divided as the country is, because
Mm-hmm.
there is one mission, and
Yeah.
everybody is comes from different backgrounds,
Yeah.
economic statuses, but at the end of the day, it's all about the mission. It's all about protecting the
Yes.
country, and serving. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no color to that. There's no economic status to that. It's
Mm.
we're all in this together. And I think if
Yes.
there was more of that, and then with that, you have the complement of civility, because
Yeah.
um, I know more. I've had more good mentors in the military, because they do project civility.
Yes.
So yeah.
That's really powerful. Okay, the last segment. Let me start with what do you think is the greatest lesson you have ever learned, or one of the greatest lessons in leadership, in life, in general?
I personally think that there's this misnomer that that it's lonely at the top, that,
Mm.
that you can't, if you're the leader, you can't be friendly. So
Yes.
I know there's some nuances in there, but my point is that leadership doesn't have to be a lonely existence,
Mm.
um,
I like that.
because looking back on my 34 years, I was a staff officer the good majority of my career, but I led a lot of people, and I am I'm friendly. I'm with those people. I've mentored a lot of them.
Yes.
So it's not that leadership is like this. You're in this you're in this cave by yourself, and nobody can be with the leader,
Mhm.
because leaders make hard decisions. Leaders do make hard decisions. However,
Yes.
leaders build a culture for a team, and
Mm.
so it's important that um,
Say that one more time, please. That's powerful.
well, I think leaders are the ones responsible for building the culture. That's part of my
Ah,
leadership philosophy is you need to be the culture king or queen of your organization, because
yes.
and then your responsibility is to push it on down so that they all have and then
Mm.
everybody becomes a culture king in their particular subset
Area. Hmm.
of your organization. So it starts at the top,
Yes.
um, but yeah,
Hmm.
I think culture has to be king.
That is really powerful and insightful. So, what do you think is the greatest leadership advice you have received so far?
I think I think the importance of the tribe
Yes.
is. I think you and I talked about it a little bit before
Hmm.
we came on the air, and understanding the importance of building your tribe,
Yes.
and that is a and really with that is the importance of mentorship.
Hmm.
As a leader, I think you're judged by who you led, and did you lead them as did you lead their whole person? Because a lot of
Yes.
times on active duty, some leaders would get in the trap of only leading them as a soldier.
Hmm.
I didn't see that. Because years ago when, we didn't want captains to leave the Army, that was a big deal. Like, oh, well, because of numbers, we need to keep the captain. No, no, the captain needs to go where he or she is destined to go. And your job
Yes.
as their leader is to help them get there. You're, I can't stress that enough. I mean,
Mm,
your job isn't just to help them while they're there on active duty. Your job is to help them beyond that. So I would always,
yes.
hey, when you're getting ready to transition, do you need help with your resume? Can I
Mm,
get you in contact with anybody that I know that's in that industry that you want to go to?
yes.
Is we are leading people holistically, not just in that short time while they are there. Because
Hmm.
I think one of the greatest things about your leadership, or if you're being judged as a leader, is do they call you, after you're the
Mm,
leader? Do they want you? Do they want you to promote them?
yes. Yes.
So that's huge.
Wow, that is so powerful. Because sometimes you're right. When you are a leader, especially in the military, and you are the officer in charge, sometimes you almost want to help your folks, and you do care for them, but you want them to be almost like a version of yourself. You want them to have the same opportunity and kind of climb up the ladder like you did, but that's really not for everybody. Sometimes you can do everything you can to help someone promote to the next rank, but no, life happens where really the best thing for them is to get out of the service all together, something happening at home or their work, education, or whatever the case might be. It's really to help them do what is best for them as a person, and not just what's going to be great for your organization or the mission of your command. And that's a lesson I definitely had to learn.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
to add on to that, one of the things that I would do too is that look, if you don't respond to me and my mentorship, because I think it's sometimes important too that you mentor people that have
Hmm.
a similar background, and so I would get out my Rolodex of friends, or on LinkedIn now, and hey, if there's somebody that I
Yes.
know that you would benefit more from and respond to better, then have at it. Because again,
Mm.
my job as a leader and a mentor is to um, is to is to mentor them. Uh,
Yes.
but if I can't, then I'm going to find somebody that can.
Powerful. So, what do you think is the secret of your success? 30 plus 5 years in the US Army, you rose to the senior rank of lieutenant colonel. That's only two promotion away from getting a one star, and then in city government as well. Why are you so successful, do you think?
Well, I appreciate you saying that with the success part, because I think we all deal with a little imposter syndrome to determine whether or not we're at the level that we need to be. But
Mhm.
honestly, I think it's really just how I've tried to treat people, and hopefully
Mm.
that's reciprocated with treating people with dignity, respect, being the civil leader that people want. So I think it's just comes down to people, like treating
Yes.
people the way that they want to be treated. Because don't don't be a leader if you don't like people.
Mm.
If you don't love people, if you don't like people, and because what's interesting is if I watched the national championship game last night and mentioned
Mm.
Indiana earlier,
Yeah. Hmm.
when Mario Cristobal was interviewed, and what he said was, there's a lot of guys in there that love each other,
Mm.
and so I think that love
That's powerful.
aspect is important too. That you
Yes.
you have to love and care for your people. So I think that's what's made me successful.
Wow, that is so powerful. The older I get, I think the more I realize it's really about caring and loving one another. That's really what makes a very very good team. Wow, powerful. So, what are you learning right now?
Uh, I am learning the importance of self care, self governance, and really reflection.
Yes.
Because I think that's something that we don't do enough of. And there's lots of books out there. Ryan Holiday with the Stoicism and Stillness. But yeah, I think it's important that you take the time to build yourself first, know how to self-govern,
Yes.
and because the better you are at that, the better leader you're going to be. And I think like over your career, you get tunnel vision, and you don't. And it's not. I'm going to make a joke. It's not about going to the spa, But if that's part of your routine, then that's great. But it's just being self-aware, understanding who you are,
Yes.
and then also taking that time to reflect.
Powerful.
You really don't want it shouldn't take a health concern
Yes.
or a transition in your life, but you should be doing that all along. I used to look at my boss's calendar, and a lot of them would put executive time. And I always wonder, like what are they doing? What's executive time? And and looking back on it and talking to some of those leaders, it's just it's taking time to yourself. It's reflection. It's it's preparation, getting ready for the next meeting.
Yes. I
So
love that.
yeah.
Powerful. And I don't know if you are ready to share that to the audience now, but with all of your reflecting, you are working on a book that might be coming up later this year, maybe? No?
So very initial stages, doing some research, on the topic of leadership. So that is something that I'm definitely considering, just with
That's wonderful.
the all my leadership time, and then some of the health setbacks I had in 24, and along those same themes of self-governing, building yourself first. So yeah, long ways down there, but it's interesting. The more that I research it, quick plug for all the veteran authors are out there.
Yes.
I mean, all those authors in general, but it is amazing to me how many how many veterans have written books.
Yes.
And I posted this on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago, and but it makes sense, right? Because especially leadership books, because you're in this incubator of leadership your entire career. And what's neat to see is that it's not just the Jockos, echelon front, David Burke, need to lead, but it's the guys and the gals in the middle, all the middle managers, because I think we all have stories to tell, and
Absolutely.
so it's refreshing to see that.
Yeah, I remember my primary mentor used to tell me what location is to real estate, leadership is to the officer corps. So, and I thought that was so true, but really to the Navy, the military in general. Wow, powerful. Okay, what about failure? How has failure shaped your life?
Oh, I can definitely relate to that. I mean, because without failure, I'm not going to say it's impossible to be a good leader, but the more experiences that you get in life, and I'm going to put failure in there, failure, adversity,
Yes.
it helps you. Well, the bottom line is it helps you relate to other people. So if you have stories to tell, it helps you be a better leader, because you're able to relate to your people and let them know that, look, I went through that too. I know exactly what it means to fail. So I just, again, reiterate, the more failures, the more setbacks, you're setting yourself up for a better comeback, and it just refines who you are. And I think it just makes you a better person, and obviously a better leader. Because if you go through life and there's no adversity, there's no story, then it's just very difficult to relate to other people, because because other people, and we saw it, in the military, especially, where, I mean, personally, you have soldiers that have family problems. You have, you're dealing with suicide and sexual harassment and a lot of issues that people are going through.
Yes.
especially younger soldiers
Yes.
that
Mm.
really don't know how to deal with adversity. And unfortunately, when I was at
Mm.
Fort Hood, we had a lot of young soldiers that made the wrong choice in life and would take their own life or attempt to because um, and and it wasn't because they had gotten back from deployment, PTSD.
Mhm.
They were young soldiers that had never been tested. So when they had the breakup with the
Mm.
girlfriend, they thought it was the end of the world.
Yes.
So they didn't have the skill set to deal with the adversity that comes with life.
Mm. Yeah, throughout my entire 21 plus year now of service, I've only lost one sailor, and it was quite tragic, and it was because of a woman.
Yeah.
We were deployed on the South Sea on the USS Essex, and his wife decided to cheat on him with his best friend, and she wanted a divorce, and he just couldn't take it. And I wish we could have done something, but like you said, no, in the green room before we started, having your tribe is so important to have it. Having people who check on you, they don't need anything from you. They
No.
just want to know, hey, Dean, how are you doing today?
And it
Anything
doesn't
I can
have
do
to
for you?
be something
Yeah.
formal, because it really never is. It's just, or like, today I'm going to check on, or, have a list of your buddies that you're
Mm-hmm.
checking on. If you care, you're gonna check on them. And I think
Yes.
it also goes to mentoring because, the military is really good about mentoring, having a
Mhm.
mentoring program, but sometimes it's a little too formalized. And I
Yes.
think you just, and then the mentoring needs to go beyond your time in service because going back to
True.
what we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
you're mentoring them past the day that they're in uniform.
Mm.
So you need to be proactive with the mentoring because it's
Yes.
funny because in the military we'll say, "Oh, that's my mentor," and I'm like, "Okay, well, is it a one-way street? Is it a two-way street?
Yeah.
Um,
Reverse mentoring. Yeah, that's
yeah,
important too.
are you contacting them? Are they contacting you?"
Yes.
So it's important that we just have more proactive mentoring because the
Mm.
more proactive you are in mentoring, maybe somebody could have prevented that sailor from taking
Exactly.
their life.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess no. Hindsight is 2020, like they say, but it really doesn't leave you the same when you experience that. But yeah, but life has to go on. But let me ask you this: is there maybe uh, what is one of the greatest fear you've had to overcome in your career or life?
I think the greatest fear is, and I'm going to use this podcast with you as therapy in a way.
Yes, is
I think one of the biggest fears uh, has really been a lack of confidence because, and it's funny as a parent, you want to teach your kids to, um, try new things, but for me, I know there's some controversy right now with when it comes to parenting is should they seek their passion or should they seek their talent?
mm,
But then and so nowadays it's more talent based and what you're good at opposed to what you're really passionate about. But my thing growing up was
mm,
did not have a lot of confidence when it came to numbers, math, and science.
yeah,
uh, and I think that's the thing that I should have overcome is really to be more comfortable with being uncomfortable. You know,
mm,
having the confidence to do things that
yes,
are not within your confidence
mm-hmm,
factor. So
yes,
that's that's really my biggest advice.
mm,
Make sure that is that you're confident with doing things that really are not your forte.
yes.
Yeah.
That's really a powerful life lesson. I think everybody can definitely learn from that. And you've also mentioned a couple of times imposter syndrome. I know those who are listening right now, it happens to all of us, even lieutenant colonels and commanders in the military. What is one of the tips, or how would you recommend people listening to us right now kind of deal with imposter syndrome, where you are fully qualified for whatever job you are doing, but you feel like you are an imposter, like they really made a mistake. They should have chosen somebody else. Like I think everybody really goes through it, because I know I've talked to a lot of 4-star general and admiral. I mean, these people, they're almost like, they've changed industry almost the course of history. But even them, sometimes they feel like they are an imposter. So how do you explain it, or more importantly, what do you suggest our listeners to kind of deal with it?
Well, so I think part of it is I'm not a student of history, but I do read a lot of presidential biographies, and
Mhm.
to me, it's amazing to look at the backgrounds that some of our elected leaders had,
Yes.
and really who they became. Because
Mm.
if you look at like modern day history, someone like Harry Truman, that
Yeah.
I, I don't know what education level that he attained, but
Mhm.
here's somebody that sat in the wings as vice president, and
Yeah.
FDR didn't give him the time of day, and then all of a sudden FDR dies, and
He's a
he
president.
he has to go fight, World War II, and try to figure out how to finish it.
Mhm.
And just his background came from nothing, um,
Yeah.
and then you look at modern day. Look at President Obama. I mean,
Yeah.
he came from very little,
Mhm.
and then became very educated. Became a I think he went to Yale Law School or
Uh,
Harvard. I forget which one.
Harvard, yes.
And then speaking of him, the other day I saw a video that it really encapsulates the whole imposter syndrome. He's being interviewed, and somebody asked him about all the different people that he gets to be associated with, and he said those people that are at those fancy dinners and at that fancy dinner, he said, they're just folk. They're just people. And
Yes.
then it was kind of funny because he's like, once you get to those circles and you see
Mm.
them, when he's like, I saw them when I was U.S. Senator, I saw them when I was president,
Yeah.
and then you see other countries and their elected leaders, and he's like, they're not all that.
Yes.
They're not any smarter. He's like, maybe half of them are pretty smart, but the other half, they're so. To me, I take
Mm.
I take great solace in going back to history and looking at people that
Yes.
have gone to the most coveted position in all of the world, the United States
Mhm.
presidency, and you see people uh, that had another skill set,
Yes.
that really made them successful.
Hmm. I think it's really great to really stay grounded. What kind of things do you do to kind of recharge and just stay grounded and not get that big head, like you are better than everybody else. You're just one of the folks. What do you do?
Well, I think if you're a parent of teenage boys, that definitely helps,
Yes, yes,
because that grounds you where your kids are like, "Hey, Dad, trust me, you're not Marcus Aurelius. You're
yes,
not uh, you're not some stoic, Greek
yes.
philosopher." Um, but I think
Powerful.
also I think it's important to have a routine,
Hmm.
and I keep going back to the reflection piece,
Yes.
and then yeah, just staying grounded that way.
Hmm.
Having some reflection and understanding who you are, where you came from.
Wow.
Family's really good about grounding you as well. So,
Yes, yes, yes.
and then going back to the tribe. I mean,
Hmm.
having people that make you realize that
Yes.
you may think you're all that in a bag of donuts, but you're really not.
You're not. Yes, yes. So that is so insightful. I could spend hours and hours with you, but I need to bring this plan down soon. But let me ask you this though: if you could choose three people, they could be alive, dead, or even fictional characters to have dinner with, who would you choose and why?
This is a very powerful question.
Yes.
Um, I think number one, my dad unfortunately
Mm,
passed
mm,
away about 12 years ago, colon
mm.
cancer.
Sorry to hear that.
I think my dad. I also think JFK, because for me,
Yeah.
JFK and his quote, "Ask not what your country can do for you, what you can
Hmm.
do for your country," that kind of sparked
Service. Yeah.
my service thought. And I'm gonna say also, I'm gonna say Jesus. And it's funny because I don't my religious journey isn't very public, but I'd say God or Jesus,
Yes.
to learn more about who we are as people.
Hmm.
Uh, I think that's important.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay. Uh, Almost toward the end, but I do like to talk about books. We read a lot here. You did mention this
You and I
book.
both, yeah.
Why should we read this? From strength to strength.
I would really encourage you to read anything by David Brooks and Arthur Brooks that you have on your screen. So the book before
Mm.
this that I read was called "Love Your Enemies"
Mm.
by Arthur Brooks, and he was the president of AEI, American Enterprise Institute, a conservative think tank, and he personally has a fascinating story. I think is he started out
Wow.
as a French horn player in
Really?
in a symphony, but then also a social scientist, very data driven. He also wrote the book about yeah, how to be happy with Oprah. Um,
Wow.
so he has a lot of different books. I think that, and so the Strength to Strength book is a lot about the second half of your life,
Hmm.
and that transition, and then going back to David Brooks. David Brooks has a book called The Second Mountain, and the second mountain is similar. It's about that first mountain in your life where you're focused on career, you know,
Hmm.
the ladder, and then that second half really should be about what he talks about is moral joy. How to
Mm.
how to give back, how to contribute to
Yes.
society. Yeah.
That's so powerful because you really never get fulfillment by just having me, myself, and I. You do have to give back in order to get more fulfillment in life for sure. So you also mentioned our founding father rules of civility and decent behavior. Why should we read this one?
I, I think it's a it's really a foundational book on civility. How to be a good person.
Hmm.
I think I mentioned that it's Jesuit based. He didn't, I think, recreate it himself. I think he probably added to it,
Yes.
but I think that as a society, the more that we read things like that,
Hmm.
um, and those become foundational, it's real important. And I would also plug a couple other books. One of them is The Soul of Civility by Alexandra Hudson.
Yeah.
She wrote a book a couple years ago, more like philosophical in nature. And then
Hmm.
from a local government standpoint, Diane Kalin wrote a book called Save Your City. And it's, again, about the
Mm.
toxicity in local government.
Yes.
She's actually, she has a civility summit in April that
Wow.
I'm part of the panel. She has a book coming out called Lead with Civility, not published yet, but she had 12 people do kind of like guest essayists, and so
Wow.
I wrote one on civility through the eyes of a veteran. So a lot
Yes.
of things that that I just talked about. But anyway, the Civility Summit's in April. Maybe we can put a link in there for anybody that wants to be a part of it.
That is pretty cool. And is she going to write a book about that too? And you're going to be one of the co-authors?
Yeah, so I think it's not publicized yet or in
Yes.
publication yet,
Fantastic.
but so it's her book, but with 12 essays on
Wow.
civility with different vantage points.
Fantastic. And so what about this one, The Second Mountain, David Brooks? Why should we read that one?
I think it's foundational. I think for anybody that wants to learn about transition,
Hmm.
and I used it. I read it 3 or 4 times when I was going through my
Wow.
transition on off active duty,
Yes.
because it's because he talked about that first mountain and how
Hmm.
important what we think we are as individuals, and
Yes.
then the second mountain is, hey, I've been doing this thing most of my life by myself.
Hmm.
How do I get more people involved in my life from a more collective standpoint?
That's
And there's a great chapter in there about community. So it's,
interesting.
yeah,
So, silly question. Is not related to Arthur book, is he?
no, they're not.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Just a silly question. Okay, love your enemies. Arthur again. What
yeah,
should we read
definitely.
this one?
The one phrase that he focuses on, oh, it's in the title. I forgot, culture of contempt, and
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's vital that we find a way to get away from that, because we're
Yes.
we're so focused on our agenda, our message, that we're not listening to the other side,
Yes.
and really this may seem a little Pollyannish, but I really don't think so, because I think it's
Mm,
how the country is founded, and
true.
we obviously had a lot of disagreement in how the country was founded with our founders, but at the end of the day, we were able to
Yes.
come together to actually found
Mm,
the. So
powerful.
I would definitely recommend anything by Arthur Brooks.
And you talked about the soul of civility.
Yeah, so Alexander Hudson wrote The Soul of Civility a couple years ago. She has this great. It's called the Civic Renaissance,
I
and
love that.
she just encourages everybody to learn that it's not just about being polite.
Mm-hmm.
It's about engaging people, where they are, respecting people's opinions, and it's
Man, we need that more than ever before in this
do.
country right
It's
now.
okay to disagree. It's like
Yes.
we say a lot. I'm going to agree to disagree with you, and
Yes.
then
Yes.
at the end of the day, we just have to find a way to. It's not just
Talk.
come together, peace thing.
Yes.
We just need to learn to come together and really disagree better. Uh,
Yes.
there's
Hmm.
another quick plug. Spencer Cox is the governor of Utah, and he founded an organization. He's a Republican, and the
Mm-hmm.
Democrat. I forget her name, but anyway, there's the whole idea of it is to learn how to disagree better.
Yes.
We can have our disagreements, but at the
Absolutely.
end of the day, if we come together, we're just going to be better for it.
Yes, I think he's the one who played a pretty critical role after Charlie Cox
Very much so.
murder, bringing
Yep.
our country
Yep.
together because we really need that. And the last one I have Save Your City.
Saver City again by Dan Kalin. She was a city manager from Canada, and then she
Wow,
saw
it's
how the
amazing.
toxicity was just kind of destroying some of these cities, and so she's also a very big Stoic
Hmm.
advocate, and I think Stoicism can be a foundation for
Yes.
a lot of people too, because well, there's just so many aspects to it that I think help you be a better person. Learning what you can
Mm,
control, and just and if you're going through some type of adversity, some type
yes.
of setback, learning that you can't control everything, and
Hmm.
that obstacle. Ryan Holiday talks about the obstacle is the way,
Yeah.
but you have to learn to go through the obstacle and not avoid it. So
That's powerful. And one thing I really love about leadership is it really scales and it doesn't matter where you come from, Canada, the US, Africa, it doesn't matter your race, ethnicity, or any of that. Those principles, even different industry, they really work no matter where you are. Okay, we do need to finish the show soon. I do have two more questions before we do. Uh, if you had one and only one day to live, what would you have liked your final contribution to be?
wow. I guess my final contribution, I guess I would like to see good government work. Good
Mm,
um, I don't know what the scenario is, but I
Yes.
would like to be in a room where I see people coming together, people working towards a common goal, and working towards some type of compromise. Uh,
Yes.
that would be
Wow.
great. That would be ideal for me.
Yeah, right now we need to see that for sure. So, if you had a magic wand, you could solve any problem. What is the one problem you'd like to solve first thing tomorrow morning?
Well, it's been a recurring theme, I know, but I really think that until we find a way to learn to self-govern ourselves, and then also govern properly,
Yes.
that everything else is kind of superfluous in a way, because
Mm-hmm.
uh, we're going to be judged as a society on how we um, how we uh, actually govern our institutions.
Yes.
And I know there's polarized ways to do that, but
Mm-hmm. Mm.
uh, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the professor Francis Fukuyama. So he wrote a couple of books on good governance, political decay, and one of the phrases he has is the importance of getting to Denmark.
Mm.
And getting to Denmark is just a metaphor. It does not
Mm-hmm.
mean that Dean wants the U.S. to be like. Um, it's really just having, a rule of law, having stable government,
Yes.
and having democratic institutions.
Mm.
So, again,
Powerful.
put whatever example that you think represents that,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that is the foundation of who we are as a country, who
Yes.
we are, who we should be as a local government, because um, we can't be
Mm.
who we want to be unless the institutions that we're a part of
Yes.
are good, and that represent that getting to Denmark
Mm-hmm.
philosophy.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, seeing good government work, that is so essential for all of society, really, because we can't really do anything, achieve anything if the government itself is not working the way it's supposed to. Wow, thank you for sharing that. Okay, we are toward the end, so that's when I ask, what can we do to add value back to you, Dean? What can the audience do? Thanks so much for spending time with us today.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. I think the main thing is probably just uh, I may sound like a broken record here, but I think what everybody in the audience can do is practice good governance,
Mm,
practice good self governance, be good humans.
yes,
That would make me very happy,
civility. Yes,
because then I would know that everybody out there that is listening to BZ right now, his audience wants good self governance, wants good
hmm
governance, and there's really nothing for me other than
yes.
maybe we can chat on LinkedIn and have have good conversations. I'm all
Hmm.
about connection and collaboration. Somebody a friend of mine told me a couple months ago that collaboration was my superpower.
Mm,
So and it's beyond LinkedIn. I just think
yes.
it's important that we as a country, as a people, need to connect to one another. The whole COVID thing
Hmm.
was very frustrating because I don't do remote well. I'd
Yes.
rather be, I wish you and I were in the same room together,
Yes.
chatting, having a good conversation.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. So we do need to end this podcast, but before I do, is there a question I should have asked you I didn't get to ask?
About me and my background, or
Just for this conversation, anything else you wanted to share with the audience we didn't get a chance to address?
no, I think I hit it all.
Yeah, yeah. I
It's
think
been
you
super
did.
engaging. I just think that opportunities like this are important, that you get people to have the conversation about self-awareness, self-governance,
Yes.
just so we can strive to be better, be better people. And, this conversation wasn't just about leadership.
Hmm.
It was about, how to connect, how to relate, how to be, how to
Yes.
self-govern, how to be better people.
Well, thanks so much. So I think one of the most important questions before we end the show is if you could go back and give a piece of advice to your 17-year-old self, standing at the edge of this great career you've had in the army and also city governance, what would you say to 17-year-old Dean?
I would tell 17-year-old Dean to know that you belong at the table.
Wow.
It's funny because my favorite quote is Teddy Roosevelt's "In the Arena" quote, and I can't recite it like Brene Brown does,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I think it's important to reiterate to myself to believe in yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
that you do belong at the table. That
Wow.
and I keep going back to that video that I recently saw with President Obama, and
Yes.
they're just folk, they're just people, and
Mm-hmm.
you need to understand that your contribution matters.
Yes. That definitely builds confidence. And I'd like to finish with something optimistic. What is something you are feeling optimistic about?
I am really feeling optimistic about my personal journey. That just around the corner, because it's been a long transition since I left the city, had some health
Mhm.
setbacks. But I personally know that just around the corner is a great opportunity.
Wow. Well, we are there with you. Anything we can do to help in any way, please let us know. But it's really a great honor to be speaking to you today, Lieutenant Colonel Dean Huard. I guess the final question I ask all of my guests, one word that represents our shared experience in this podcast today. That's the end.
I would say connection.
Connection. Well,
Yeah.
I am so grateful. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Colonel Dean Huard, U.S. Army retired. Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thanks,
that.
BZ. Appreciate you.
Uh, Well, everybody, this is one of the longest podcasts we've had. I'm so grateful for the time Lieutenant Colonel had to speak with us today. But I think what he's talking about is very, very important. Not just about leadership, not just about success, but the way we treat one another, civility, the way we collaborate, humility. And I think that's really what makes us American, I think. Right? That's who we are as a country. And that's who we are as a projection to the world. He mentioned President Ronald Reagan, again, doesn't matter if you are liberal, Republican, or whatever, but Ronald Reagan had this mastery of words and images. He talked about the city on the hill. Now, I was a little boy in Africa, Point Nord, the Republic of the Congo, but I saw America as the city on the hill. And one day I wanted to become American too. Now, that dream for me became true, but that's really who we are, right? We are not a country like some of the other imperialistic country. We go, we plunder, and we kill people, and we do all kinds of crazy stuff. Like even during World War II, right? I went to France last time, it was about 2.5 years ago. If you go to Paris, you have to go to the American cemetery. You absolutely have to. You are going to see the graves of our young men and women, courageous people who died for an idea, not even for their own country, but to save Europe. And when we saved Europe, we didn't go to Europe and say, okay, now we want all of your wealth and all of your riches. You guys belong to us. We are going to be your master. No, no. We said, just give us a little bit of land. We just want to bury our dead. That's all we want. So that's who America is. And that's why I am in the US Navy. And that's why I'm willing to give my life for this country. So we need to go back to that. We are American. We are not mercenaries. We are American. We have values, right? And that's who we are. But anyway, I'm going to stop speaking now. But hopefully this has enlightened you and inspired you. And hopefully you're going to be the best version of yourself. I hope in some small ways that's what we are inspiring you to do. So like I said earlier, tomorrow I will have a great pleasure of interviewing. Let me see if I have the image here. Uh, oh, sorry, I don't see it. Okay, yeah, here it is. Okay, I'm gonna be interviewing a chaplain tomorrow. Chaplain Colonel Shabazz. He has a PhD and a doctor of ministry. He's gonna be here tomorrow. I definitely want to have that conversation with him. And then the day after tomorrow, I will be interviewing Chief Duane Hart, U.S. Navy retired. cybersecurity leader, tech visionary, and keynote speaker. So for those who don't know, in the Navy, a chief is an E7, so senior enlisted. And senior enlisted folks have been mentoring me since I was a seaman recruit. From the time I was an E1 all the way to the time I became an O4 as a junior officer in the Navy. So when I became a commander, even a commanding officer, I'm like, I've been mentored by chiefs all of my career. We're not going to stop now. So even today, chiefs mentor me because they truly, truly run the Navy. No, you can get rid of all of the senior officers, all of the admiral. I think this Navy will still be powerful and the force for good because of the chief, because of the anchor. So hopefully you are going to be here. And also later today, I will continue my special series on ancient wisdom, mentoring from the book of Proverbs. Again, this is not a religious podcast, but we're looking at the book of Proverbs, really seeking for wisdom and leadership lesson. So today, the 20th, we're going to do chapter 20. Tomorrow, we're going to do chapter 21. And at the end of the month, we're going to read all 31 chapters of the book of Proverbs. I hope you can join me for that too. All right. Until later today, and for those who are going to join me tomorrow, this is Coach Busy. Thank you so much for watching this wonderful episode and insightful episode from the Leadership and Success podcast. Again, thanks a million to our master teacher today, Lieutenant Colonel Dean Huard, U.S. Army retired. Thanks again, and see you later today, and for some of you tomorrow. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to the Leadership and Success podcast with your host, Coach BZ. If today's episode added value to your leadership journey, be sure to subscribe, share, and join us again for more wisdom nuggets on how to lead better and achieve greater success. Remember, leadership is the most critical skill of our time. The world will always need leaders to inspire others, drive innovation, and execute meaningful strategy. So why not count yourself among the bold leaders shaping the 21st century? Until next time, stay inspired, stay committed, and keep leading with excellence.